Welcome back.
Yeah,
It's been a bit of time, hey.
it sure has.
Last time we were talking about DeepSeek and AI models and how things are going to be changing in the world.
Yeah, and now we're back with a more pressing question.
Yes, before we get there,
Ooh.
have you noticed on I don't know if you've seen this,
Mm.
but there's a heap of images coming up of people sort of personifying themselves as action figures.
Yeah, I have actually. I love
Yeah,
it.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's because of an open AI update. So
Ah,
I guess if we call back to our last podcast, you can say one up for OpenAI over the Chinese models.
oh, the DeepSeek one.
DeepSeek,
Oh,
yes.
okay. Well, they're winning, and I got to see myself as a one of those action figures.
Yeah. But like you said, something more pressing. So we're
Yes.
going to be talking about how CVEs, common vulnerabilities and exploits, no, common vulnerabilities and exposures are being removed.
What?
And we're going to explain what does that even mean? Tuesday Tech, where we talk all things tech
But not always on a Tuesday.
from a techie.
To a non techie.
So, be honest, have you ever heard about what a CVE is?
Honestly, I have not.
Okay, so just a bit of context here. Leah has seen numbers of vulnerabilities in the past and understood what a vulnerability is,
Hmm.
but when it came to like a CVE, that's something that's new to you.
I don't know what that is. Not
So,
a clue.
so in the world of like cybersecurity, we need to have an index to search up what a vulnerability is so that we can search and share that information worldwide. So a CVE is a number that's created by an organization called MITRE. They're a not-for-profit organization, and they catalog these common vulnerabilities and exposures against a number which also includes the relevant date that it comes out, so that we're not talking about, hey, Lazarus group hacked this one on this date. Have you patched that vulnerability?
Oh.
Instead, we're going, have you patched CVE and load of numbers?
I see. So it's all to do with vulnerability, and I think you mentioned it before as like a database.
Yeah,
Right.
exactly. So it's like an index, right? Have you
Right.
ever used an index at a library?
Yes, I have. Yeah, of
Yeah.
course.
So it's the same thing. Like you're not going to walk into a library and go, well, I need to have this in a category and I'm just going to do it by title.
Of course not.
No, there's
That's
too
wild.
many.
Yeah.
So you use an index. So CVE is that index for your common vulnerabilities and exposures. So any sort of vulnerability that gets disclosed and reported on is then attributed a CVE number by a authority that is trusted. So you have a few different people, Huntress, Tenable, those are the only ones I'm thinking off the top of my head, trusted as authorities to actually go and register as CVE. Other
Oh,
people have to do it through different means I'm not aware of right now, but they have to put in a report and sort of get it approved. But you have your authorities there that then help to create these numbers.
okay. So there's the CVE database. How does that all kind of like come into play? Like, explain it to me from like obviously the vulnerabilities aren't just they're everywhere because it's the internet, it's IT stuff, it's security. So where is does all this happen?
So imagine that there is a centralized location of a database that anyone can access, anyone can search to find a history of known vulnerabilities. And then they can use that to go and search their environment to make sure that they don't have those vulnerabilities. And if they do, read the notes on how to mitigate and fix those vulnerabilities. Does that
Oh,
answer that question?
yeah, it does kind of, yeah. So you can access those things through like tools and
Yeah.
like vulnerability trackers and stuff like that,
Yeah,
or
so you have like vulnerability scanners.
oh yeah.
So Tenable has Nessus, and you have OpenVAS. You're going to test me now, and you have Connect Secure, and there's Qualys, and there's a few other big names
Sure.
that provide a product that can scan your environment or scan your application or code base or all these different things, and then match it against a database of vulnerabilities.
Okay. So CVE is kind of a big deal.
It's a huge deal. I've heard it said that it is the dictionary for cybersecurity people when it comes to vulnerabilities and exploits.
Okay. So it's a big deal. It affects everybody. So what's happened in the news?
So, as of recent, literally as we're recording this, there has been a leaked letter that has been sent out suggesting, and since confirmed, that MITRE, the company that helps and holds that database, is no longer going to be getting the funding contract from the government that they had, therefore nullifying CVEs going forward.
Wow. What?
Yeah,
That's
so
insane.
that's the short part. Like, if you want to just watch to this part in the podcast and cut out, you've basically figured out the information that we're going to cover.
Mm.
But we're going to go in detail now, and we're going to touch on a few different areas that have led up to this and some of our thoughts around it.
Okay.
So, just to throw a spanner in the works, you've got CVE, you've understood CVE now, you've understood that MITRE is the main branch of that.
Right.
Then you've got NIST. So NIST is the National, I believe it's National Institute of Standards and Technology in the US.
Mhm.
And they sort of bring out standardization against a lot of different things, even so much that they create peanut butter that is a standard peanut butter to base off, to say, this is what pure peanut butter is. Yeah. So they do some weird things. They've got a weird history in US. The biggest thing I would say is their standards against technology and cybersecurity. So they help with this database as well, and they've got their MVD, which is a sort of similar or some. I don't understand the relationship fully, but it is a database of sorts for vulnerabilities
Right.
as well.
Okay. So no, we've talked about this earlier today. You said that they're funded by the US government. So what's happened here is they're not going to get any more funding. Is that what's happening?
So you're jumping ahead a little bit.
Oh.
So CVE and MITRE
Yes.
is no longer getting the funding. However, NIST is a separate entity,
Okay.
and they have their NVD vulnerabilities database. So they had a lot of cut costs on their part as well.
Right.
And 2 weeks ago, it was reported that their website was down. So if you wanted to hit their website to get any sort of vulnerability database, it was down.
Okay.
So you
That's
have these
not
two
good.
branches. You have NIST, and then you have MITRE.
Right.
First NIST 2 weeks ago, website's down, and going off a post from Paul McCarthy, it says that it came up with a 402 payment required. And he speculated in that post that have they not paid the AWS instance, and is this related to cutting costs?
Oh.
So imagine like a really important server that has standards of technology for vulnerabilities, and their vulnerability database
Right.
is just not there, and the result is coming up as payment required.
Oh.
So that happened 2 weeks ago. They
Okay.
came back online,
Right.
everything's fine.
Okay.
No one talks about it.
Right.
Then fast forward to today, there's a letter. And I'm going to read you that letter now. So this is the letter that was leaked. It's dated April 15th, 2025. Bear in mind that's in the US, and we're recording this on the 16th. However, there's a time difference. And it says, Dear CVE board member, we want to make you aware of an important potential issue with MITRE's enduring support of CVE. On Wednesday, April the 16th, 2025, the current contracting pathway for MITRE to develop, operate, and modernize CVE and several other related programs such as CWE will expire. The government continues to make considerable efforts to continue MITRE's role in support of the program. If a break in service were to occur, we anticipate multiple impacts to CVE, including deterioration of National Vulnerability Database, so that's that NVD for NIST,
Mm.
and advisors, tool vendors, incident response operators, and all manner of critical infrastructure. MITRE continues to be committed to CVE as a global resource. We thank you as a member of the CVE board for your continued partnership. So just going off what I've said before,
Yeah.
NVD does have this flow-on effect. So the database that they have is connected to CVE. So if CVE, the branch above them,
Mm.
gets axed, NVD, by relationship, see you later.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, that's what I'm reading here, and that's what I'm understanding. So that's bad.
Yeah. That's not good.
No. And I'll read a post here. We're to our Aussie audience, and we're in Australia here. We've got Ahmed from Gridware, the CEO. He posted on LinkedIn, and he said, just read that the CVE program might shut down this week. No funding. Honestly, that's wild. Gridware is one of only 8 CVE numbering authorities in Australia. And that's what I was talking about before,
Yeah.
how you have an authority that can actually submit CVEs.
Right. Yeah.
So we work directly with MITRE. The system isn't perfect. It can be slow, clunky, bureaucratic, but it works. It's how we all share and track vulnerabilities. No CVE means no shared language, no coordination. Everyone's flying blind. This isn't just a US problem. Every country, every vendor, every security team relies on it. Most people don't realize that CVEs contribute massively to the effectiveness of pen test tool results. They scan your environment, check versions, then match them to known CVEs. If this actually goes dark, we're in for a mess very quickly. Vulnerabilities don't wait for funding renewals. This will be a pre-CVE shutdown versus post-CVE shutdown moment. He likens it to pre-COVID versus post-COVID.
Goodness.
Not the end of the world, but things won't be the same after. And he says, and yeah, Australia's not immune to this. If vulnerabilities are important to your organization, then it's worth paying attention to what happens. If that doesn't summarize it, I don't know what would.
I'm lost for words. Yeah, it's
So, like, to just simplify that even more, we won't, unless something else is developed at this moment, have a way of standardizing what is a vulnerability in the environment.
that's terrifying.
Yeah.
Considering we live in a world where vulnerabilities are everywhere
Mhm.
and there's always people or things happening to try and hack into systems, and no one is safe. Okay, let's be real here. So I'm curious as to why this would be happening now then, if we live in a time that seems to be, we need these tools the most.
Yeah. So, look, not that I'm going to take a hard stance on this and not that we're a political channel.
No, but
But one person I respect very much in this industry is John Hammond from Huntress. And he put out a quick video. I think he was the only one that had a YouTube video at the time. And he mentioned that there may be, connection, whether directly or indirectly, to the Doge effort of Elon Musk and cutting costs. So I don't know. I don't really want to take a hard stance on that. But there's
okay. I guess we'll have to wait and see what unfolds from that then. But so, like, we're assuming the worst, where to from here? I mean, obviously, as it said in that post you read just before, this isn't just a US problem. This is a global problem, and it definitely affects us here in Australia too. But where to from here?
That was a great segue to this very new information, literally 3 hours ago, as I'm reading this. So, Tiberius, a cybersecurity content creator and educator, has shared that there's an extra bit of information from the foundation launched to secure the future of CVE program. So I'm going to just read this, and it's brand new to me. So excuse me if I don't have all of the information just at the top of my head. But it says for immediate release, and it is dated for today. CVE Foundation launched to secure the future of the CVE program. It says the CVE Foundation has been formally established to ensure the long-term viability, stability, and independence of the Common Vulnerabilities and Exposures CVE program, critical pillar of global cybersecurity infrastructure for 25 years. And so it goes on to explain the program itself. And then if I skim through here, it says the concern has become urgent following April 15th, a letter from MITRE notifying the CVE board that the US government does not intend to renew its contract for managing the program. And it says we'd hope this day would never come. However, in response, a coalition of long-time active CVE board members have spent the past year developing a strategy to transition CVE to a dedicated non-profit foundation. The new CVE Foundation will focus solely on continuing the mission of delivering high-quality vulnerability identification and maintaining the integrity and availability of CVE data for defenders worldwide. That's great. So they're just going to, the board members, by the sounds of it, they're just taking...
They've just gone rogue and gone, nah, we're going to do something else. I love that.
Yeah. So there's a quote here. It says, CVE as a cornerstone of the global cybersecurity ecosystem is too important to be vulnerable itself, said by Kent Landfield, an officer of the foundation. Got a few other quotes here. And then it continues to say the formation of the CVE Foundation marks a major step towards eliminating a single point of failure in the vulnerability management ecosystem and ensuring the CVE program remains a globally trusted, community-driven initiative. Okay. And then it says over the coming days, the foundation will release more information about its structure, transition, planning, and opportunities for involvement from the broader community.
Okay. Well, that sounds promising.
So grassroots.
Yeah, I love it.
That's amazing. Hey.
They're fighting back.
Yeah.
Good
And
on
like
'em.
you look at the document and it's pretty bleak. Like it's just information. And at the top it says for immediate release. So you can just imagine that
They've
this
just
is
they've just piled it together and went, get it out.
yeah. But it sounds like they were aware of this.
Mm,
It says have spent the past year developing a strategy. So this is not news to them by the sounds of it.
right.
So
So they
that-
kind of like as if they had some kind of like contingency.
Yeah, that's
something
actually
happened.
all right.
Okay. So it may not be the end.
Yeah, but it's going to change. It's definitely going to change.
Okay. But hopefully it can change into maybe something better and something that can be, yeah.
I think the one thing I want to add here that's more of a curiosity question is I wonder what vendors like Tenable, or if there are any other vendors like Tenable that have their own vulnerability database that they've been trying to create over the years. I
Ooh.
wonder what they're going to do during now, if they're going to use it for a sort of an opportunity of
Ooh.
growth and go, hey, we've got a database, come over to us. And I wonder if they'll open it and make it,
Like-
hey, you don't actually have to use our software. We're just going to say,
Like open source or something, or
yeah,
that'd be cool because, like, I think that would be quite unifying, I guess, to the wider community. That, like, if you've seen one vulnerability thing, I may not be using the right words, but if it's a database, it should be like a communal database, right? Because
Yeah.
then that way it can benefit everybody. Sharing is caring. We learnt that in preschool, and it should apply even to this.
It
Mhm.
should. Well, I guess sort of bittersweet. We started with doom and gloom, but we've come to this last immediate release, and it literally is within the last 3 hours that
Wow.
this has been posted.
There's a bit of hope yet.
So, yeah, a little bit of hope.
Nice.
So, if you got this far into it, you should be leaving with a little bit of hope.
Yeah, I feel a little bit lighter.
And I think that's where we're going to end it.
Nice. We did it.